So there are quite a few ways out there to scan your film, including the borders. In this video, though, I want to talk about my way of doing so involving the Essential Film Holder. This method won't really apply to using a flatbed scanner. So if you are looking for ways of doing that with the flatbed scanner, I've seen a heap of videos out there on YouTube, and I'm going to link one of the more popular methods in a video by Jonathan Notley in the description below. And those flatbed methods usually involve taping the film either onto the flatbed glass or onto some anti-Newton glass. And I've been asked quite a few times on how to scan film with borders, because I have occasionally done it in the past where I've scanned film including all the information on the edges of the frame. So in this video, I thought I would show you my method using the Essential Film Holder. So in the past, I'd only used methods like the negative holder from my enlarger, so I couldn't really go recommending that in confidence because these glass holders for the LPL enlarger at least are very expensive and hard to find on their own, so it's not very practical as a way to get into scanning film with borders. You can do things like just taping the film down onto anti-Newton ring glass or using something like Blu Tack straight onto the scanner glass. That probably would be a bit slow if you're going through quite a few frames, so that's why I've been liking using the Essential Film Holder. All right, so I've been using this holder for my home film digitizing or scanning, whatever you want to call it, workflow for a couple of months now. And I did a full breakdown and review in a previous video, which I'll put up here in a card, but also in the description below this video. And I definitely recommend checking that out if you watch all of this and you want more information on this, if you are impressed and actually thinking about getting it, or you just want more information and samples. I do all that in that other video. All right, so the great thing is if you get the Essential Film Holder, the default masks that come with it, whether they are the 120 masks or the 35mm, you can buy it with one or the other or both. Both of them though do let you scan or digitize the film with a bit of the black border around the frame. So this won't be the full border showing you the words on the edges of the film, the Kodak, Fuji, or whatever, but it gives you a nice thin black border as you can see in these images, which is something I quite like. I find it less distracting than scanning the film with the full rebate and information and the sprockets, for example, on 35mm, and I just like that thin black edge and the ability to digitize the entire frame knowing that I've got everything that the camera captured, and it could look nice, I guess, in some prints. However, if you do want to digitize your film with more of the borders or the full sprockets, for example, on 35mm, the Essential Film Holder does have the option to buy additional masks on top of the default ones, which actually allow you to scan 120 film with the full borders or 35mm with the sprockets, while still being able to run entire uncut rolls of film through the holder if you like. So comparing them to the original masks in the example of the 35mm ones here, you can just see that the full sprockets mask here is just a bit wider because it's not going to hold the film across the edges. It's going to leave the sprockets and borders uncovered, allowing you to scan that full width of the film. However, because of the nature of trying to scan film with the borders, these masks wouldn't have something like the guide layer that is included with the default masks. So it's not going to guide the film nice and straight through the holder there when you're using the default masks. When you use the full borders masks, whether it's the 35mm or 120, there's no guide layer. You have to pretty much manually position the film underneath the aperture, line it up, and digitize the frame. And the same thing applies to the 120 masks. They are just a little bit wider than the standard ones. And because of the nature of this, it just means that if you decide to use these full borders masks, it is going to be a bit trickier and require more care than using the standard masks that come with the holder. And it isn't going to hold the film down as firmly or as flat as using the standard masks. And I think just by nature of trying to scan the entire width of the film and without being able to hold it and clamp it down as firmly, getting everything nice and aligned and flat is going to require a bit more care, whether it's with this or probably most methods. But with that sort of disclaimer in mind, I still found it fairly easy to get the knack of using these and aligning the film in the 120 or 35mm holders. And I still found it pretty effective and quicker, at least, compared to other methods I'd tried in the past that involved taping the film down or just photographing the film straight in the sleeves or putting on the scanner glass, which didn't give very sharp results. With this, you can still get pretty sharp results, including the full border of the film, without the hassle of anti-Newton ring glass and things like that. So the methodology of aligning the film in the full borders masks involves inserting the film at a diagonal angle from one corner of the mask to the opposite corner, and then swinging it back down into the aperture, lining it up, and digitizing a frame or multiple frames as you normally would. However, like I mentioned, this can be a little bit more finicky, especially compared to the standard masks because they don't have that same guide layer. And the other thing is that because you're capturing the full width of the film, you're generally only holding the film across 2 or maybe 3 sides of the film. So there might be one side allowing a bit of light through and having a bit of a gap there, which you can, if you like, tape up with a little piece of black gaffer tape if you like, allowing you to capture the full frame without getting any of those light leaks, at least on 120. But when it comes to 35mm, because you're going to be showing those sprockets in the mask, so there's no way to really prevent the light shining up through the sprocket holes while still being able to capture them. So sometimes you might notice a little bit of light flare coming in through the edges, even spilling onto the frame, especially if you're not careful aligning everything perfectly with your camera. All the examples I showed you, I didn't bother using any tape to block off any stray light, and I still got really decent results, as you can see in these examples here. And because of the decrease in flatness just when using those full borders masks, keep in mind that you probably want to stop down your lens and get a little bit more depth of field to account for that bit of extra curvature that might occur in the film. This can vary from film to film depending on the thickness of the base or emulsion or whatever, and I find that most films I have, at least when they're quite flat, didn't have much problem laying more than flat enough to capture enough depth of field using f8 on my macro lens. And as mentioned, it's quite important, especially when capturing the sprockets with the full sprockets mask on 35mm, because you've got that light shining through. You want to make sure your camera is perfectly aligned and straight over the same plane as the film. What I like to do is a method putting a mirror on top of the essential film holder, lining everything up and making sure that I can look into the reflection and see the sensor in the middle of the frame I'm capturing on the camera. It sounds a bit complicated, but you can look up methods on using a mirror to align your camera when using a DSLR to scan. This mainly applies to methods I use, such as a tripod. If you have a copy stand and it's permanently lined up, you might not have to bother with this, but the method I use a simple little square mirror. So with all that in mind, I feel like the essential film holder offers a pretty versatile option to scan film, including the thin black border, very easily without any extra trouble compared to using it normally. A lot of the photos you've probably seen me posting on my personal Instagram page have started to include some of that thin black border because they're either film shots that I've scanned more recently or rescanned, and I like having that little bit of black edge on some of my shots. And also when it comes to the option of adding those full borders masks, whether it's 35mm, 120 or both. So if you get into this system, I definitely recommend starting with the standard holders. And I think that's the reason why Andrew, the maker of the essential film holder, put up a separate order page for those extra masks, because it's just to avoid someone going in not knowing about those extra steps and care and dexterity required, and that possible sacrifice in results, including the light flares or the decrease in flatness. But if you keep all that in mind and you're still willing to do maybe a little bit of tweaking, you can probably get perfectly flat scans even with this, if you're really set on getting those full borders on your film scans. So personally, like I said, I'll probably still use just the standard holders for the majority of my scans, but it could be fun every now and then to scan certain frames using those full borders, maybe something like I said with portraits or a lot of negative space. I've been seeing it a lot lately, and it's why I've been having the question so much on how to scan film with those borders. I feel like there's a lot of other videos showing different methods that have already been done, but this is a method that I haven't seen much content about on YouTube, and I feel like it's a pretty effective way of scanning your film with the borders. So whichever one of those two setups you choose, I hope you find this video helpful and to be a good potential option for whether it's just scanning your film in general and getting a bit of that black border with the standard masks, or even as that upgrade option of getting the full borders masks, adding it onto an existing kit. And also that the way I see it, this is a great option to have more things on the market like this, and hopefully more products besides this coming out soon, which helps support the film photography industry. And once again, check out my other video on the essential film holder for a full breakdown, including comparison scans between that and flatbed and other holders, including the Lomo ones, different light sources. It's a pretty in-depth review, so head there if you want more information. Thanks for watching another Pushing Film video, and I'll see you in the next one.